It's going to be hard to show you because it's not on. But I'm going to, you can come this way. This is a portafilter. Okay. This is called a double portafilter because it, see this basket? Good. All right. These are both doubles. Even though this has two spouts, this has one, you'll probably take these spouts off altogether and just use it without the spout. You don't need spouts. So you're just going to, with a pliers, just remove these. Because this just cools it down even more.
Right.
It's another layer of stuff you don't need. So this holds enough for what they call double shot. Now, we don't do singles here. We just do doubles for the 8-ounce, quads for the 16-ounce. So a quad would be 2. And a double would be just 1. Okay. And so that's your espresso. And you're going to make it, it's called a semi-automatic. What that means is, you see this brew stop button? And you see all these other buttons? These buttons, you press them and it supposedly automatically drops the right amount of coffee. They're not accurate so much. So it's better to use the semi-automatic. You're going to press this button. Espresso is going to start pouring down a certain amount. And the amount is 1.5 ounces. And you'll have shot glasses that tell you where the 1.5 ounce mark is. On this shot glass, it's probably up to here, but you'll have glasses that are actually marked with lines like they have with boards. A shot glass down there, press it, and 1.5 ounces, and you press it again. Now, what makes a shot good or bad? It's going to be hard to show you without the machine, but you'll hopefully remember this. So important that it takes a certain amount of time to drop that 1.5 ounces. If it drops it in 10 seconds or 15 seconds, weak, horrible,
Isn't
miserable
it like 20
coffee.
something seconds?
25 seconds. More or less. Now, so if you go 22 seconds, 28 seconds, up to 30, it's fine. You're not going to toss that shot. If you go 15 seconds, it's not going to be good. Now, what controls it? This machine has nothing to do with it. All this does, it's a pressurized tank in the back. When you press this button, it opens a valve inside that allows the water to come through these very finely packed coffee pods. You pack them by getting coffee from here.
Actually, may I trade spots with you?
And this is something that has to be played with also in this machine because, and then you tap it down, you give, I know you don't know what 30 pounds of pressure is because neither do I, but they say 30 pounds of pressure. And you'll get to know what that is over time because it'll either work, it'll be too fine for coffee to come through or it won't. But that's, so you pack it basically, put it in, and see that's too much right there. So you have to just adjust it to the machine how much you put. When you're down at Richard's, hopefully you can bring some coffee and he could also show you.
Okay.
Except some of his ideas about coffee, he's more mass market.
Right.
He might say to use less coffee or something, but we can talk on the phone about what's. But see, you just put this in, press the button, and it drips right into the glass. When you have 1.5 ounces, if it takes 25 seconds, you're
good.
right. It's going to be a good shot. If it takes 15 seconds or 35 seconds or 40 seconds, it's not going to be the best shot you can have.
So you can control how long it takes
You
by
can-
how well you pack.
No, the packing and this machine. So that's the grinder. Now, I highly recommend in a cafe, especially a cafe like this, where there might be 4 or 5 people working all day long, that just one person per shift is designated as the grinder person. Because in my experience, if you have too many people adjusting a grinder, someone might pack harder or softer. No, it should be one person adjusting it, and that's the grind. Otherwise, it gets so out of whack sometimes. Like someone will turn it, and then it's hard to get it back. Basically, the adjustment is this turns, and I don't have my glasses on, but one way is finer, which I believe is that way.
So
It
you're
should
going
be an arrow.
down. So an 8, 9.
9, that might be fine. We just have to play with it. Usually there's an arrow someplace. I'm going to test this before I leave today, but we'll get this adjusted more or less, but with my coffee in it, so this way.
Right.
as long as we do it more or less, then you're going to be within this much or this much by the time you open, as long as no one, you know.
That's all right.
Sometimes people, like I just did, so I went all the way like that. Now, you know. But on the spot, once we get it dialed in, you don't want anyone messing with it except maybe you in the morning, and if you're not here, and someone else.
Right.
But so that will determine how good the shot is. The machine is always just does what it's supposed to do. It had nothing to do with it. You know, it just provides the water and the heat. All right, so that's the whole principle behind espresso. What else can I tell you?
There's a
Doubles.
whole book on it if you want to read it.
There are books written.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
You had one at
simple
the
enough.
cafe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's simple enough to read. It only takes
Yeah.
a few hours. It's,
Yeah.
you know. Now these portafilters always should stay in here when they're not in use. So as soon as you make a drink, let's say I make my drink, turn it off. I immediately get this. There's going to be a bar across this. You tap it out. You tap out the coffee. You're going to have a rag, and you're going to press this to rinse it out. This is after every drink, regardless of how long the line is, whatever, and put it back in. And you don't leave it. You'll see in some restaurants. You'll see this in cafes also, because they just don't know. Like in that place down that we went to yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure they leave them like this. If you leave them like this, the whole point of espresso is the water has to be, everything has to be hot. If it's not hot, it will not extract. It'll be horrible. And if you go into places where you see stuff like this, never order espresso drink. It's free. This is how cold it is. And that's a very heavy piece of metal.
Yeah.
The reason it's heavy is because you want this to be hot, so when you extract it, everything is working to extract the coffee, the heat. So this always stays just like this, clean, ready to go for the next shot. He's going to have to adjust the gasket, so
Okay.
he'll know. Just,
Maybe replace them.
he's doing the whole thing. Yeah. Okay, so does that am I making sense? Okay, so they stay like this. Grind. Okay, now this particular grinder, this type of grinder, this is called a dosing grinder. That means you click this, and in theory, it gives you one shot of espresso. One shot. So this should be enough for one shot. This should be enough for two shots. In reality, it's not. So if you go into now in a restaurant, they might do it like that. Restaurants don't really have great. I never order espresso in a restaurant either, because the staff isn't interested. They're interested more in the food. But if you go to a cafe, they'll never grind this much coffee in advance for espresso, because the idea behind espresso is it's fresh. Yeah. It's not so much like that with with drip coffee, but espresso must be fresh, so you don't ever grind that much. What you see in cafes is when they get a drink, they immediately put this on, and then they click it until they have what they know is enough for a double in here. Probably something like 2.5 of it. Probably something like this is enough for a double.
So almost
Wait,
3 whole clicks
sorry.
on this one.
If you weigh it, if you have a gram scale,
Yeah.
18 grams.
Can we adjust the doser? Or is that?
We can adjust it. I wouldn't recommend using
Okay.
a doser. I would just, because there's a point where it's going to fill to a certain amount, and you know that's the amount when this machine is working. It's always coordinated to the machine. But also, if you have the gram scale, I believe that's the right amount, but weigh out 16, 17, 18 grams and try each one and see what your taste is. We use 18 grams in my cafe, and because I like it,
Right.
And so if you use more coffee also, you can grind it slightly coarser than if you use less coffee, see? And then the bitterness, the finer you grind it also will have a little more bitterness. So I try to work it so I use a little more coffee and I grind it slightly coarser.
Okay. Right.
But then you're going to decide if you just get the gram scale that way when this is working, and try 16 grams, pack it. It's going to be like an hour of trial and error. And then you say, all right, this is what I like, and then that's when to show the staff this is, or what the
Be
staff
like this
decides.
at the
Whoever
end
the
of the
coffee
day.
drinker is who loves espresso, those are the people who should be doing this.
Yeah.
is a decaf espresso, which probably 10% of the people order a decaf espresso. We have this one. Okay, and that you're going to have a system. Probably it'll be beans in a one of those containers.
Right.
Keep it right in here, and you'll just have a scoop and scoop the right amount, whatever we say, the right amount in here, and a cup. You hold some takeout right here, and you'll know what how to grind it. There's probably be number 3 here. Cup, put it into the coffee filter, pack it down, and make it. So that's because there is no espresso grinder. You might get one eventually, but right now this is a pretty powerful grinder, and this is a nice espresso. So that's for decaf. I have to not be self-conscious here.
Right.
The right side.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the coffee side. Then you have the steaming side, which you've done.
I've done.
You've done, okay, and you haven't. This is all practice. It's all practice, and you'll get it. If you're intuitive anyway, you'll get it within a half hour. How to do it. But basically, you have steaming pitchers.
I think they're in the bag, or maybe.
Here's one.
I took one out. Oh, there it is.
Oh, there we go.
Good. And you have a milk refrigerator.
Yes, it's in the bag there.
Okay. And oh, great. That's the barista. And you probably will be using this milk up here.
This is actually, Strauss is up in Marin. I think it's Marin. It's a local dairy, all natural, organic. And we're not going to use, we want to do sort of like whole food, like food in as much of a natural form as you can. It's processed, obviously, so this is really good milk. And the reason I mentioned wholesome is because we won't be carrying skim milk, fat, non-fat milk, because it's processed too much and it's just so far away from its natural form that we're not going to carry it. We get a few people ask for it, but we're just not going to carry it. That's actually the same with soy too. Soy is highly processed and lots of the enzymes are broken up, and so we're not going to carry soy. But we probably will carry almond milk or something, So there's an alternative, certainly.
Yeah. Maybe coconut.
Yeah.
Almond's number 1, and people do like rice also.
Okay.
But I'd say almond is the first choice for people that they like. Foam's the best.
The rice does, or no, the almond.
Almond.
Okay.
So also this milk I just read is lightly homogenized. When you have regular homogenized milk, what they do is they centrifuge it. It destroys any useful enzymes that are in it, and so Strauss says they lightly homogenize it. So hopefully,
And you can see it's a barista on it, so they were specifically targeting cafes with this.
It is 2%.
Yes.
So it makes better foam, but it's 2%. All right. So the only I can't show you how to steam it today, but I can tell you, keep in your mind that when the machine's fixed, you've steamed
Yes.
a number of drinks,
Yes.
and you'll be the one training.
Yes.
So you never want to fill a pitcher. This will be self-evident when it happens. You don't want to fill it too high because as you steam, it develops foam, and if you'll be frustrated if you fill it to here. It'll just this too much before I get to the right temperature. The right temperature is important. If you ever go into a place that doesn't do coffee that well, and you just see them do this, and then it just almost boils or does boil, they're destroying the flavor of the milk, basically. Burning it, and it just not good. So important to make the coffee right, very important to make the steaming right. We have a thermometer here, and it might be in the back. Bless you.
Is it in that bag? That's
Also,
yeah.
here. So there'll be a timer also to help you for the 2.5 times.
I was thinking about like counting in my head.
You can count in your head, or you just put the line like this. And there's a pneumatic, so it sticks right in the machine. And you this is just like a tool, because the 25 seconds doesn't guarantee a good cup of coffee. 1.5 ounces in 25 seconds is what guarantees the good
There's
coffee.
two variables. Yeah.
Those are the two variables. So if it goes 25 seconds and you have 3 ounces of coffee, you know that's it's too coarse, and someone has to adjust that. See what I'm saying? And we'll just leave it on 25, and then when you're ready, just press the button and press this as soon as you see the coffee drip, not when you press this button. Press this button, coffee drips, and that's when you press this. 25 seconds, if you have about 1.5 ounces, you're right on. Okay.
I'm gonna switch places
Now,
again.
if you notice, if you go into very quality cafes, like the one on Haight Street, probably doesn't use a thermometer. I would guarantee they don't.
I don't think so.
If you go into places that aren't so hip, let's say, they use the thermometers, all right? It gets in the way to me. It's not the most sanitary, this and that, but it's a good tool for training to know what the right temperature is. You want it at 140 to 150 and not higher. They're even saying 150 is too hot, but some people get annoyed if the drink is cold. So I like 140 to 150. So do that in the beginning or for training.
Right.
See what 140 to 150 is. Do you know how to calibrate these?
I have not calibrated one of those.
Okay, ice water. You dip it into ice water,
Okay.
and this nut here, you turn it until it's 32
32.
in ice water.
Okay.
Or boiling water at 212, but it's harder to deal
Right.
with. Ice water.
Manageable.
Okay, and so when I'm saying, okay, so the alternative to the thermometer. So at the beginning, you use the thermometer. You say, see what is 140 exactly, and how you're going to do it in real life is when you steam. This is going to get hot within 20 seconds. This much milk will get really hot within 15 seconds. It's a very powerful steaming mechanism. You're going to hold it, and when it's too hot to hold, it's 140, because that's too hot for most people to hold. And then you say, well, almost too hot. Not that you're going to get scalded, but you'll feel the heat. It won't just be warm. It'll be, I don't want to hold this anymore. It's ready. And I guarantee it'll be around 140 at that point, because they're all pretty much similar with what we... So that's it. So that's the heat is very important. You don't want it to go past that. Sometimes people ask for, I want mine extra hot. Just make it extra hot. Don't hold it. Just keep going, and that's what they want. So we don't. There's some cafes that won't do it because they feel it's a liability, or like people will burn themselves. I went to a place, what's it? Ashland, Oregon. Got the name of it, but I asked for a. They're very rigid about what they'll do, and I said I want a wet cappuccino. And we don't do wet cappuccino. So why not? Well, we believe that the coffee is better when it's proportioned like we do. I said, no, but I need to do it. And then finally I wound up showing, I want this much milk, I want steamed, and they finally did it for me. But it doesn't pay to do that, because people want what they want. So if they say they want it extra hot, do it extra hot. So as far as steaming goes, you'll see this from Michael when the machine's fixed. But basically, there's just a technique. The technique is very important. The main thing I want to show you about that, he'll show you how to steam. But the main thing I want to show you to protect the machine, this is going to be a reconditioned machine. If you take the milk that's in here, put it like this, and go like this. This is science. There's a back pressure in the machine. Many times, there's a vacuum that develops. The vacuum will suck up milk into the boiler. From that day on, the boiler will have an off taste and off smell. I don't know if you worked on a machine where you get water out of it for tea and it has the off smell.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Oh, really?
And for some reason people don't train on that, but I've seen it time and time again in restaurants a lot of times, because it's not their thing with coffee. And you would never use that for tea, because if someone did this, turn it on, it sucks up. So what you do is before every drink, you turn it on, and a little bit comes out, you close it, and then that satisfies the machine's need to have a free, because this would create a vacuum. It's too much pressure, it's sensing pressure that's not really there. So a little steam comes out, you close it, and then you start steaming. You see? That protects the machine. That will keep it in good shape. Now, the only thing I'm going to tell you, and then we'll move on, because you have to really see this, the milk, let's say, is up to here. There's the surface of the milk, and there's in the milk. You start by plunging in, and then you pull your hand down slightly until, yes, the foam, you get, this has 4 little pinholes in it, until it's on the surface, and you'll start to hear, and that's the air going into the milk. If you hear, it's not right. That means you're too far down. If you don't hear anything, that means it's you're all the way in the milk. You're not getting air in. So you want to skim the surface, so air goes into the milk, and you'll see it rises. As the surface of the milk rises, you pull down ever so slightly, until it's too hot. Close it, and that's it. You'll see that you have foam. Now, let's say you had that much milk, you should have foam to here. The foam is going to have coarse bubbles on top, and fine bubbles. You want what they call microfoam. Yes, so bang it. You might get splashing. Don't worry about the splashing. That's all part of the show that people want to see. You splash. You'll have rags here. You clean it off with a rag. You clean this off. They want to know that you know what you're doing, and you're doing this for a reason. I keep my hand over it because I don't like to clean too much. And then when you see that the coarse bubbles are gone and it's all fine, that microfoam goes into the coffee and makes it creamy tasting. Because that's what the whole point is, the microfoam. And it's hard to show you. You know, I know I'm just explaining without showing you, but that's the key to a good latte and cappuccino. You know the difference between lattes, cappuccinos. Okay, a cappuccino is so much coffee, about the same amount of milk, and the rest foam. So it's mostly foam and some milk.
And then what cappuccinos have more milk?
A little more milk.
Dry has
More foam. And then a latte is mostly milk and a little bit. Some people think no foam on a latte, but people still want to see foam.
Yeah.
So I always make sure there's some foam. On every drink, I make sure there's some foam. Macchiato is an espresso with just like, you drink macchiato,
Yeah.
so just a little marked in Italian. Macchiato means marked. It's marked with a little foam on top. So you'd use a small espresso cup, and it would only fill up this much. I think.
What about cleaning the wand?
Cleaning the wine. Oh my God! As part of every drink, like I said, this has to be knocked out. Then when you foam, now you have this milk left over. I will say this on camera. There's some cafes, hardcore, that will toss the milk. They just try to get the right amount, but if they have left over, they'll toss it. It's completely wasteful to me, and especially this milk costs money. So, but you have to cool it down again before it will make good foam. So, but you should not put a huge amount of milk for just an 8-ounce cup and then have that much left over. You'll get to know, oh, I only have that left over. Just put it back in the refrigerator, let that cool, use another pitcher for the next cup, but when this cools, then you can use that milk as part of the next drink. So that's that. Then, as soon as you finish the drink, before you go to the customer, you have your wet rag on the counter, and you clean this off, like this. And then usually you'll turn this on a little until a little foam comes out, just to make sure there's no milk stuck in here. And that's ready to go for the next person. I should say also, you'll have a wet rag for that. You'll have a dry rag for that. And what I've been doing, I don't know if I did this when you were in the cafe, but actually a barista showed me this, and I learned something. You might have to cut a towel down, but you get it to the point where it's like this and put rubber bands around it, and then it's a dry rag. And then after you clean it out, and before you make your next drink, you just go, it's ready to go. Whereas you see a lot of people have a dry rag, but this is so much easier. And then every day you take a new, it's just one will last all day, and every day you take a new one. Do the same thing. So you have a wet rag to clean the wine, a dry rag to clean this before you make the next drink, and then you'll have another rag to clean the counter. And you try not to mix those up, but sometimes you do. Am I missing anything that you can think of?
Not that I can think of.
Mochas, you just have to, we could talk on the phone, but you'll get recipes from mochas and saying, there's one scoop of this and this and that.
Where will we keep the mocha?
With the it depends now. I use a dry mix that I make myself. You might want to do that, or you might want to buy it. If you want it, it doesn't take any time to make your own, and it's better. You would keep that in a container. I use a metal, like a spice can that has a flip lid, so you don't lose the lid, and then you have a scoop right in there, and you just scoop it into the cup.
Got it.
And then the can can stay right here next to the machine all the time.
Okay.
And then your cups, your ceramic cups probably should stay on top of the machine to keep it warm. They should stay. Anything you use in the cafe, but you don't have a lot of seats, so you have enough room up here.
The mocha, after you put the dry in the bottom of the cup,
Yeah.
and then you put the foam.
Not in the cup, you put it in the steaming pitcher.
The steaming,
So you're
okay,
going to have
right,
a
okay.
steaming pitcher in here that's for milk. You'll probably have 2 for milk and then 1 for mochas. And it'll just stay in there. And then you use, we use 1 scoop per 6 ounces of milk,
Okay.
of the mix, but it depends what you use for it.
Right.
So you put 1 scoop, put the milk in. As you foam it, it incorporates everything in. You don't have to do stirring or anything.
So that'll be. So you still have to make like the shot of espresso to put into it.
Yes,
Okay.
for a mocha. Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't
Hot
hearing that
chocolate.
part in it. I
Well,
was like,
hot
whoa.
chocolate, you don't need the espresso. If
Right.
someone orders a hot chocolate, you just make chocolate and milk,
Right, but
and
then
that's
to make
it.
it the mocha.
The mocha would be espresso and that.
And some people ask for a kid's hot chocolate. I mean, it's just not as hot.
Not as hot.
Yeah.
What
and
degrees?
sometimes not as chocolatey because they
Yeah.
don't want the kids to
I
have sugar.
know. Yeah.
How hot is the kids' hot chocolate?
So they'll get the hang of it, but in other words, when you're holding it, you'll get the sense of, oh, this is warm. That's all the kid needs. 120.
Never heard of a kid rejecting a hot chocolate.
No, they drink it. It's the parents more than the kids that
Yeah.
care about it.
You don't want the kid to burn himself.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to decide if you want to use syrups, ammonium syrup, vanilla. We're talking about that a little bit,
Right.
maybe just 2 or 3,
Yeah.
not the whole spectrum.
No.
In a lot of quality coffee houses, you'll never find like this whole line of Torani syrups with
That's what we had at caffeine.
peppermint patty and all this. That has its place, but not in a place that's trying to do something coffee based and not so. So a couple of syrups like vanilla, people ask for caramel.
Hazelnut.
Hazelnut would be the nut syrup, and really, that's about it. White chocolate, that's a call that you would make. I don't do white chocolate because it's not real chocolate a lot of times.
Yeah.
They use shortening. It's
Okay.
like hydrogen agent stuff to make that. I can't think of anything else for here, short of actually making the drinks.
Right.
Well, the only other thing would be, but that's something that you'll train, the cleaning of the machine at the end of the night. Very, very important. You must have done it.
Yeah.
The stuff.
Take everything apart.
Did you get a blank with this machine?
No.
Yeah, so you take one of these filters out, and you'll have a whoa there. So just show him.
Okay.
He'll tell you how. You have to clean this. So that's where that stuff comes in. I'm talking about.
Is that supposed to be silver?
Yeah, this is just supposed to be bare metal. So there's this stuff. There's all different brands, Puro Cafe and this and that, and the instructions are right on it. Just this goes in it. You wipe this out. This is pure silver. This goes in it. All this stuff that can get rancid overnight goes in every night.
Yours, I remember I used it one time. You put it in, and like automatically,
Immediate.
it's like immediately.
It's great. It's great stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. And then you also take this apart. You take the screen off. There's a screw here. You unscrew it every night. Take the screen off. Did you do that?
Yes,
The
I did,
basic,
actually.
Right? It's great.
Yeah.
Good. And then you take the screens off. That goes in. Part of the close up, and then it goes back on. Test it. Make sure that it's on, and the next day it's ready to go. The next morning, before you make any shots, I was telling Michael, as soon as the person walks in to open at 5:45, whenever, the first thing they should do is press the button, let some water